I struggle to find words to describe the BYD Atto 3, and it's not for the same reason as the GAC MQ. In fact, the exact opposite. This car feels a bit too plain, everything a bit too simplified, a bit too restrained, and I know that's the direction we're headed in as the car designs evolve. But then I saw the car in the right light. The sun started reflecting off its surfaces, and I thought, wow. You see, this car is like a stone. A pebble that spent its entire life on the side of a riverbank, smoothed out over the years. The body lines are soft, calm, almost effortless, and with this car, the devil's in the details. And before we start this video, I just want to give a huge thank you to the official GAC Motor Zimbabwe dealership for making this video possible. All the cars you see in this video, including some of the vehicles you spot in the background, were sourced directly from them. They've been incredibly helpful in allowing me to spend proper time with these cars, drive them, film them, and really get to understand what they're like beyond just a quick first impression. And recently, they're expanding their portfolio of vehicles to include select BYD models. That includes this Atto 3, which is why I have one with me today. They handle servicing, maintenance, and genuine spare parts support for these vehicles as well. If you want to see these cars for yourself, you can find them right opposite KK Tiles Eastleigh Corner, Amar Avenue and McCleary, alongside Samora Michelle here in Harare. So again, massive thank you to them for helping me make this review possible, and back to the video. Up front, the most notable thing you'll see is this silver bar with BYD embossed boldly across. It stretches the entire width of the car, and below it on either side are the headlights. If you look closely, you'll see a tinge of blue underlining the main headlights, and to the side we have this broken design. This level of detail is something that you'd expect to see on a Mercedes-Benz, not a Chinese vehicle. Well, I'm here to tell you that things have changed. These Chinese brands aren't playing around anymore. They're no longer subpar products, but I'll go into more detail about that in another video. For now, let's focus on the car. Now, down below we have this black element. I'm sure it serves some sort of aerodynamic purpose, but it's mostly there to add some visual interest. As we've already seen with the A&Y, electric cars just don't need any grills. All of the cooling is handled by that vent underneath, but there's more to it than that. The outer bodywork folds and contours, and if you look closely, that creates this upper and lower section. It's very subtle. The only thing I would remove is this hideous registration plate holder, but regulations. What are you gonna do? Orbiting to the side, we have these 19-inch diamond cut wheels. Traditionally, I'm not a huge fan of diamond cut wheels, but they look really nice here. They work really well with this car's design. I think the regular soft alloy wheel design would have looked out of place here. Now remember, towards the beginning of this video, I said this car is like a pebble. Well, nowhere is that more evident than here at the sides of the car. At first glance, it may look really simple and seem like it just has one character line running from front to back, but when it's in the light, it creates these I don't really know what to call them. Distortions? These rounded shapes that you would see in pebbles and stones. You then have the individual pieces like the side mirrors, which are very slick. This panel to the side that says BYD design, and to be honest, this design is something that they should be proud of. We also have this chrome outline that grabs our attention and leads it to the back, where we have this fish scale panel. I've noticed that it's becoming a bit of a trend. The M-Zoom has one, the A&Y also has one, and it's becoming a bit of a signature piece with these cars. We also have the roof rails up top and our door handles, and then let's pause here for a few seconds. NFC? Now, with most modern cars, you don't get a traditional key. Instead, you can use your card or your cell phone as the key instead. Because like most modern cars, BYD has a phone app that allows you to connect with your car. On the back of most modern phones, you have an NFC chip that emits a signal. It's what allows you to use Apple Pay, tap your phone for wireless payments, use a digital passport or ID, or in this case, unlock the car using your phone. But beyond just locking and unlocking your car, you can use the app to check the battery level and range, sound the alarm remotely, or just get the lights to flash. Useful for when you're trying to locate the car in a large parking lot, especially at night. Other features include turning the air conditioning on so that when you get in the car, the temperature is where you want it to be, and other security features and notifications. Which may explain why the keys look like this. Not a lot of effort at all in comparison to its fellow countrymen, because they want you to use your phone instead. Anyway, back to the fish scale panel. It's sculpted to follow the slope at the back. Moving down, we have our lights, and again, because this is the future, we have to have a light bar. The back overall is also plain, save for the black panel at the bottom, again to create some visual intrigue. The license plate holder is a bit better integrated, though we have other little bits and pieces like the silver trim at the bottom. At first, the lights seem kind of, well, plain and boring, but you have to see them when they are on because they look really good, especially with the chrome trim. I also really like that they wrote build your dreams instead of just BYD. Overall, I do like the rear end, and of course we have to add EV to let everyone know that this is an electric vehicle. No, seriously though, I do think it's important that they did that, because if you didn't see that, you would think that this is a normal ICE car. It looks nothing like the eggs on wheels that we've seen other manufacturers come out with. Sorry ANY, but it's true. It's a completely different philosophy from other manufacturers. This looks more like a designer handbag than it does an appliance, and to be honest, I prefer this look over a toaster on wheels. And speaking of designer, the interior of this car is nothing short of designer, because this has to be the best interior in terms of design that I've seen in my entire life, and that is not an exaggeration. Now, some of you are very much offended by that statement, and you swear that your Mercedes-Benz or your BMW has the best interior. And I do agree with you to an extent, because just opening the door of one of those cars, the smell of leather alone will leave you dumbfounded. And the BYD doesn't hit you in the same way. But that's about where I stop agreeing with you, because aesthetically speaking, while Mercedes-Benz is running around filling their cars with screens to make up for a lack of creativity, BYD is doing this instead. And I feel confident in saying that not even the latest in Mercedes-Benz lineup or BMW, and especially not Audis, hold a candle to this in terms of interior design. Now, let me explain a bit more. I think it's pretty evident that this entire car is inspired by water elements and things you might find around bodies of water. The overall front and rear exterior reminds me of a playful seal or sea lion. I've already said that the bodywork looks like a pebble, and the fish scale panel is, well, pretty self-explanatory. And it's also true of the interior. Starting here with the dashboard, which is the biggest example. It uses imagery of a vast ocean, starting from the detailed windscreen defoggers. Then it stretches out, spilling over into the passenger's lap. But before it can get there, it's caught by the sand, represented by the white centerpiece that splits the upper and lower sections. Now, if you look at the sides, the way the air vents have been styled reminds me of the jagged cliffs that you'd find at the seaside. Now, they couldn't make them sharp and pointy like the real thing, because that's a lawsuit waiting to happen, but they were able to achieve the same sharpness with the lines and textures on top. Now, there is a bit of a mechanical feel to this car, and nowhere is that more evident than the doors here. Looking at the sides, but we'll get to those in a moment. Right now, as you're sitting here, you may be wondering, what is that odd seashell-like thing sitting in the sand? Well, it's a speaker, that much is obvious, but something about its shape makes you want to pull it. And that's exactly what you're supposed to do, because that's your door handle, which is pretty unique. And it's maybe at this point that the Mercedes fanboys are starting to see why I said what I said earlier. But enough about that. Apart from the ambient lighting in the seashell, there is another strip in the door, and then lower down we have this mechanical piece that spans the width of the door. Hidden behind it are your window and mirror controls. Then lower down here, the most prominent thing are these red strings that cut across, becoming the partition for the side bins. They mimic the look of an electric guitar strings, which looks really cool. Now, it's also important to mention that most of the things on this door are made of plastic, except for the sand section and the upper part of the door. Those are all soft touch materials. But it's the execution that makes it stand out from the rest of the competition. Oh, and the button to open your trunk is also located here. Speaking of the trunk, since this car is electric, does it have a front trunk? Well, let's find out. To access the front, we pull twice on the bonnet latch, and once we're done doing that, let's swivel around to the front, and the bonnet should look like this. And to open it, we look for a latch, just like you would in a regular ICE car, and voila! Do we get a front trunk? Sadly, no. You get your fluid reservoirs. I have no idea what this is, but it looks important. And under this cover over here, you have your regular 12-volt battery. But there is an awful amount of space here for us to just ignore, which could be convenient for storing the charger at the very least. So why didn't BYD bother? Well, apparently, according to focus groups, very few people actually use the front trunk in EVs. So financially, I guess it doesn't make sense for them to include one for a small group of people. But not to worry, however, because there are aftermarket options available if you really did want one, like this one. Now you have a place to store your charger. Not a tremendous amount of space, but it is useful. Now, you may think that the door looks stunning, but they went all out when it comes to the seats. I mean, just wow. Look at this. And the details don't stop there. Take a look at the plastic panel that sits next to the driver. Those lines are different from the ones that sit on top. The ones on top remind me of the lines that you'd see on a whale. Moving up, you have cup holders. Now, you'd think that they aren't interesting, but they are. Inside, they're textured, and they give you these little stubs so that you can place a shorter cup in there without it sinking into the hole. We have a garage to place our phone, then a plastic panel that houses our start-stop button. The buttons and switches do feel pretty nice to use, and the panel isn't glossy so it won't attract fingerprints. We then have the gear selector itself. You press down for park, and if you want to engage drive, you put your foot on the brake and pull down. Up for neutral and up again for reverse as well. We then have these air vents which are mounted lower down than usual because of the screen that's up top. These vents are pretty nice and unique. Now, I did try and pull this piece up top because I thought it would cover them up, which would have been a good idea. Just imagine dropping an earring in there. Good luck fishing it out. Other standout features are these map lights that are touch sensitive like the ones in the Range Rover, and next to that you'll find controls for, well, what? The sunroof obviously, which spans the length of the cabin from the front to the back, providing plenty of natural light. The glove box doesn't really have any standout features, and the mats on the floor can be different from car to car. You can get these rubber-like mats or more traditional carpet mats. I did find something interesting in the passenger side door that I very much wanted to press, but I held back the urge in fear that I might not be able to put it back the way it was. Now, the back is an exact carbon copy of the front. All the details from the doors are carried over, including the ambient lighting, which isn't always the case in some cars as they try to cut costs. The seats are an identical copy to the ones up front in terms of styling, including the perforated inlay. You have the same hard floors as you do in the front, and sitting back here is comfortable, leaving enough knee room. Your legs are slightly raised owing to the battery underneath, but I don't think that's a big of an issue. You also have air vents back here, and your passengers are reminded about BYD design, as well as having a USB Type-C and USB Type-A port, a small cubby, and at the rear of our nicely sculpted seats, pocket for your phone, or whatever you want to put in there. Now, we've ignored it for long enough. Let's talk about the huge screen in the center. I'm not going to go into a terrible amount of depth on it because I had to translate some of what was on the screen as it was still in Japanese. English hadn't downloaded yet. I'll go into much more detail when I release my video on the Dolphin, since both systems are identical apart from, well, I think the screen sizes. The Dolphin should use a 12-inch screen and this a 15-inch, although this car can also come with a 12-inch screen depending on how it's spec'd out. And there is no arguing, this system is better than any of the ones in the GAC models that I've tested so far. In fact, better than any of the cars that I've tested. Why I say that? Because it feels like a phone more than it does a car interface, which makes it intuitive and easy to use. You'll get up to speed much quicker than having to learn the system over time. Plus, just the sheer size of it makes it better, like in the A&Y. And if you notice from that video, that car had fewer features than its counterparts, the MQ and the M-Zoom, but it felt like more simply because of its size. You can rotate the screen if you prefer it in the portrait orientation, and the widgets change shape to fill the screen. But I feel like the landscape orientation is more natural. You can play around with your general settings, your dark mode, light mode, that kind of stuff. Connect to Bluetooth and play your songs, connect to Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and I'll show you all of that in my video on the Dolphin. And that should be it for the interior. Oh, wait, I almost forgot the driver screen, and honestly, I don't like it. I don't like how it looks, I don't like the display, even though it shows everything you could possibly need a driver screen to show. It's just small and awkward looking, especially when you consider the competition. Even the one in the A&Y is way better than this. BYD,
shame on you. You need to do better.
Now, beyond this lower center console that features 3 charging ports, USB-A, C, and a cigarette lighter style charging port, and an SD card slot, notably smaller than what you get in the MQ, this car has a trunk. And as we can see, it can only accommodate 1 crate comfortably. Thank goodness this car comes with a load cover though. But because of that load cover, it restricts the amount of space in the boot as well. Turning the crate around isn't really an option because of the load cover and the slanting seat. It means the crate is pushed right to the edge of the boot. So let's remove the load cover and see how much space we can create. But because of its shape, we can't store the load cover in the car. So we're going to have to leave it behind. Matt Watson would yeet it into the shrubs at this point, but this isn't a press car and the channel isn't big enough that I would do that regardless. So subscribe so that we can yeet things into shrubs. And with the load cover gone, as you can see, there's enough space to fit crates side by side, but the boot won't close and a third one doesn't fit on top. So we're stuck with one. Let's fold the seats down. This car has tabs on either side to pull on, and this is what it looks like with the seats folded down. There's still a bit of space on the floor, but I don't think we can fit a crate down there. As you can see, we can fit 4 crates comfortably with space for a 5th one to the side. And it was at this point that it started pouring down. So subscribe to the channel because your boy got wet to deliver this video to you. The irony. But as soon as it dried up, we were back at it again. And remember how I said we can fit only 1 crate with the seats up? I lied, because lifting this load cover creates a little more space underneath, so you can alternate depending on your preferences. Underneath you'll find your jack, tire inflation kit, warning triangles, and a reflective vest. I guess another benefit of this is that you can have a full-size spare tire, especially here in Zim where it's mandatory, and with the additional space we can fit two crates stacked on top of each other, and the boot will close comfortably. And from the boot you can close it or lock the car if you wish to, as you would in any other car. And unfortunately, no driving today because they didn't have any test units for the BYD Atto 3 just yet. And in the middle of filming, this particular Atto was sold and the second already has a deposit on it. How much did it go for, you may be wondering? Well, this one went for 26,000, but don't expect to pay that price all the time because this was a second-hand unit with mileage, no warranty, and I suspect that was a promotional price. So if you want to find out how much you can get for one, make your way down to the official GAC dealership and find out. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest questions people have when buying an EV. Range. The standard Atto 3 comes with a 49.92 kilowatt battery, while the extended range version gets a 60.48 kilowatt battery. Now, BYD claims up to 320 kilometers from the standard car and 420 kilometers from the extended range version, but those are laboratory figures. I suspect that here in Zim, with our roads, our traffic, and the way we actually drive, you can realistically expect somewhere between 270 to 300 kilometers for the standard battery and roughly 340 to 380 kilometers for the extended range. Now, numbers like that don't really mean much on their own, so let's put them into a real life Zimbabwe scenario. Let's take the daily commute from Ruwa into Harare. It's a route that thousands of people drive every single day. You have open roads, hills, traffic, start-stop driving, basically a little bit of everything. It's roughly a 20-kilometer trip each way, so around 40 kilometers a day. If you're driving the standard range Atto 3, you're using roughly 13 to 15% of the battery each day. That means you'd comfortably go around 6 to 7 working days before needing to recharge. The extended range model does even better, using only around 10 to 12% of its battery on the same commute, meaning you could comfortably get through 8 to 9 working days before plugging it in. Now, there are a few things worth keeping in mind, and I'll put them on the screen so you can pause and read through them. Now, let's talk about the question that everyone really wants answered. How much does it actually cost to charge? Zimbabwe uses a tiered electricity tariff, meaning the more electricity you use, the more each unit band costs. I'll put the full tariff table on screen because there are quite a few numbers to look at here. But for most households, once you factor in no more electricity usage, you'll probably be paying somewhere around the middle of those tariff bands. Using that as a realistic estimate, driving an Atto 3 to work and back every weekday from Ruwa to Harare works out to roughly $20 to $23 per month in electricity. Yes, that's correct. $20. To put that into perspective, a normal petrol car doing exactly the same commute would typically cost somewhere between $90 and $110 per month in fuel alone. That's saving roughly $70 to $90 every single month, and that's before we've even done any weekend trips or extra driving. Now, one thing that is worth mentioning here in Zimbabwe is load shedding. You either want to be strategic about when grid power is available, or like many EV owners are already doing, pair the car with a home solar system. If you're charging primarily from solar, your running costs become even lower. Even if for whatever reason you fall into Zimbabwe's highest electricity tariff band, you're still only looking at around $33 per month for that Ruwa to Harare commute. At the cheapest tariff band, it drops to just over $10 per month. The reality is that most households will fall or land somewhere between those two figures. And now some of you may be thinking, that's not really a fair comparison because nobody really cross-shops EVs against a normal petrol car. Fair enough, so let's compare it against Zimbabwe's hybrid champions, the Toyota Aqua and the Honda Fit Hybrid. These are the two most popular economical cars you can buy in this country, and both have proven themselves over the years. Using today's fuel price of around $1.97 per liter, that same 800-kilometer monthly commute would cost the Aqua around $55 per month, while the Honda Fit Hybrid comes up to roughly $66 per month. Compare that to the Atto 3's electricity cost of roughly $20 and suddenly the picture becomes very clear. Even when comparing against some of the most fuel-efficient cars on the road, the EV still comes out significantly cheaper to run. Over the course of a year, you're looking at saving somewhere between $450 and almost $600 depending on which hybrid you're comparing it against. And if you're charging from solar, those savings become even bigger. So, what do I think of the BYD Atto 3? I came into this review expecting not to like it, but I didn't expect to respect it as much as I do. At first I thought the design was almost too simple. It didn't have the shock factor of something like the M-Coup or the M-Zoom, but the longer I spent around it, the more I started to appreciate it. Then you step inside, and I genuinely think this is one of the best interior designs I've ever experienced in a car. Not because it's covered in expensive materials or because it's trying to impress you with giant screens, but because somebody actually sat down and designed it. Every shape, every texture, every little detail feels intentional. Then you get to the ownership side of things. The range is more than enough for the vast majority of people in Zimbabwe. Charging costs are unbelievably low compared to petrol, and even when you compare it against cars like the Toyota Aqua or Honda Fit Hybrid. Two of the most economical cars you can buy. The Atto 3 still comes out on top, comfortably. And I think that's what impressed me the most. This car doesn't rely on one thing to sell itself. It isn't just cheap to run, it isn't just packed with technology, it isn't just practical, it isn't just well designed. It manages to do all those things at the same time. I think we're reaching a point where buying an electric vehicle is no longer just about saving fuel. Cars like the Atto 3 are starting to stand on their own merits. If someone were to ask me whether or not they should buy one, my answer would be yes. But be a bit cautious. Remember, this is an electric car, so you're going to have to buy into a certain lifestyle, one with compromise. Because you'd have to adhere to a strict charging schedule, and you're going to have to plan out longer trips or have a second vehicle altogether for those longer trips if you don't want the compromise. But as a daily commute vehicle, hell yeah. Not because it's electric, but because it's a genuinely good car. And perhaps that's the biggest compliment I can give it.